Today we're very excited to interview a new guest who just about to launch a new app. The name is Healthiplate. What's that mean? So today it's his role to explain all the new interesting word to us. So hello Nabil.
Good evening. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me on.
Please introduce you a little bit to our audience.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Nabeel, the founder and CEO of Healthiplate. Aside from Healthiplate, I'm a economist within the civil service working in international trade. And alongside that, I'm doing a part-time PhD at the University of Leeds in economics, looking at monetary economics and capital flows.
Oh, that sounds very, posh and advanced. But I think a lot of people gonna hold the curiosity for you. Like everything, the economy is not related to food, especially when you're talking about it's like healthy food or unhealthy food. So what made you made the decision to pursuing this area?
So despite economics being the core of my professional career and my education for the last 10 years, food, health, and nutrition has been a key priority area of mine outside of that side of my life. So beyond my professional experience and my education, I've been trying to optimize my health with varying degrees of success now for quite a few years. It's always been a bit hit and miss. And that's been through me trying to optimize not only my physical health, but my mental health as well. And of course, diet does play a key role in that.
Mm. So, what's your colleagues, your friends respond when they heard like, oh, as an economist, you're gonna be an entrepreneur related to health food.
They were definitely surprised, although they were also quite supportive and quite interested in the app that I was building for Healthiplate. People do think of economists and entrepreneurship as being two distinct
Mm.
fields, but I have found that especially in the last few weeks, as we gear towards launch, looking at pricing consumer behavior, that there have been a lot of overlaps between what I've studied and my experience as an entrepreneur.
Mm. Are you that kind of kid, like as a kid, you want to be an entrepreneur? Or
Um,
when did you have the feeling like you can be an entrepreneur?
I'd say so. I didn't suddenly wake up one day and decide that I want to have a business or that I want to be an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
This was definitely an idea that I had organically through pursuing my own interest, in this case, watching a Dairy CEO podcast, and then deciding that this was a gap in the market that I wanted to fill.
The gap of the market, can you
Indeed.
describe it for us more detailed? What do you mean?
Of course. So there are quite a few apps, of course, MyFitnessPal being a key example. And of course, that's now been transformed monumentally by AI, as have many other industries.
Hmm.
So, for example, now there are apps where you can take a photo of your food, get the calorie count, fat, protein, and carbs. And of course, you can use MyFitnessPal also as a substitute to uh, calorie count.
Mm, yeah.
But there aren't any apps where you can take a photo of your food and it tells you whether or not it's good for you based on what your goal is. And that's the gap in the market that Healthiplate is trying to fill.
Like, is there any other similar app in the market? Maybe not in UK, maybe in USA or something?
So in regards to an app that allows you to choose a health goal, take a
Mm.
photo of your food, and then get a health score alongside knowing whether or not it's good for you, no. Although whether
Oh,
or not it's a matter of time before there is, only time will tell.
wow. Actually, I'm a little bit surprised to hear the answer is no, because once the first time I heard your app, I feel like, yeah, I think, in people, everybody wants that. So it should have been existing in the world, right? So what's the aha moment for you, especially for this app?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the aha moment, as you said, is that I also thought that there would be apps like this. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first had the idea, I was actually in the gym.
Oh.
I remember ending my workout prematurely, naughty, just because I was so excited about this idea. So I then spoke to a good friend of mine who was also an entrepreneur. I gave him
Mm.
the idea. And then to my surprise, I found that while there were apps, as I mentioned, that allowed you to take photos of food and get analyses, there weren't any apps that went into the granularity or the detail that Healthplate goes in.
Mm. If you can describe like top three most interesting point of your app, what would you tell to our audience?
Absolutely. So the first is the range of goals that the app handles, whether it's generic such as building muscle or losing fat. Then going into more niche conditions such as ADHD, PCOS, they're looking to balance their blood sugar. So that's people who are typically pre-diabetic, also from type 2 diabetes, IBS, or looking to optimize their hormonal or thyroid health. Secondly, the ability to take a photo and for the app to recognize it, and that's been made possible, of course, thanks to the advancements that have been driven by AI. And then the third is the pros and cons, which give you concise bullet points that tell you whether or not what you're eating is good for you or not.
And is there like any single moment, maybe just one meal or one conversation besides the jam that suddenly it occurs to you? What made you realize that we all think we eat healthy, but in realistic, let's say, we're just guessing this is healthy, or sometimes people go through the TikTok. Sometimes there is a nobody just tell you, okay, eat these five things, you're gonna be super energetic and people just collect the video but don't do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the industry hasn't helped itself. I think it's now the case if you ask 10 people for advice, you'll get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
I'd say there's been a lot of confusion in foods as well. So foods that we think that are healthy typically aren't. And of course, we're also seeing an uptake, especially in the US, in issues like gut health, obesity, people being overweight, not in optimal health as well. So that all leads us to thinking that perhaps is a lot of misinformation in the industry.
Mm. But you've been trained as an economist for
Yes.
10 years. So, what kind of benefit do you think for this expertise and now you're an entrepreneur? And what makes you feel like, oh, it's a little bit different from me and other entrepreneurs without that kind of training or mindset, let's say?
Of course. So I said that economists are data driven. We like numbers. We like to quantify things. And I think that's what Healthplate does quite well, especially with the scoring system, which is 0 to 10.
Mm.
It's clear, it's concise. You can track it, and of course, as the saying goes, you can't optimize what you can't track as well. And I do think that sometimes having rambling paragraphs as to what is good for you or what isn't kind of confuse things. Going back to what we mentioned a few moments ago, so I think again having that, yeah, 7 out of 10, this is great. 2 out of 10, this is terrible. Avoid this. I do hope
Mm.
that does make things an awful lot easier for the industry as a whole.
Mm. And I remember when we first met, you said
Yes.
something really, you know, struck me. Like you are what you eat,
Yes,
right?
indeed.
What's that mean?
Yeah, of course. So I do believe that what you eat, it does feed into things like discipline and also how you perform. So if you do want to be lean, should you be eating a lean chicken breast or should you be eating a processed burger? Of course, I think we both know the answer to that.
Mm.
But I do fundamentally believe that what we eat, what we put into our bodies, just fundamentally determine how we perform, how we look, how we feel.
And you mentioned how we feel because it's not only for the physical health, it's also for mental, for even, kind of like lifestyle, life attitude, right?
Yeah, of course. So in recent years, there's been growing evidence that essentially the gut is the second brain, the gut-brain connection, and poor gut health also leads to things like poor mental clarity as well. And interestingly, through conversations I've had in the last few months, people are saying that even things like ADHD are now linked to poor gut health, and then when people change their diet, improve their gut health, their symptoms of ADHD also just do seem to improve as well.
Oh, I think a lot of people never heard
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So again, I think that comes down to the fact that there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes people aren't getting the information that they need, whether that's due to it being hidden away or just buried and delayed information.
What are the most common mistakes you see people make when they think, they are eating something healthy? Especially, I know from your perspective and this app, the core of the app, something might be healthy for somebody, but not healthy for you, right? So can you give us
Yes.
these examples?
Wink.
Oh,
So that came as a huge surprise, and a lot of protein just never got used after that.
oh, that's super
Yeah.
great. And can you give us like two or three fake healthy food that people always order all the time?
Yes, first of all, I would say energy bars,
Mm-hmm.
things like grenade, just because people don't actually um, realize how much sugar there is in those foods. In some cases, it's actually been more sugar than than a chocolate bar, which is quite shocking.
Yeah.
Secondly, things like yogurts as well, which
Mm.
can be processed and again have actually more sugar than a chocolate bar or a packet of sweets might have. Um, and then thirdly is sugar-free foods, typically because people again they assume that's automatically healthy or good for their goals, whereas in reality all that's happened is that's been replaced by sweeteners, which some people say are actually worse for you than sugar. So
Mm.
in that case, the answer may well be just to stick with the normal version of food that has sugar, but of course have it in moderation.
Mm. So your app can scan a photo of the
Yes.
meal and immediately tell people what it matches with the goal, like the muscle or the
Yes.
fat loss and ADHD and the PCOS. That is super great. So that sounds like Black Mirror or science fiction is for some people. So what's the magic behind it? Because if you only answer AI, then people still feel like, oh, it's too far from us. I don't believe it that much. Everything can be explained with AI currently. So can you tell us more details?
Yeah, of course. So a few years ago, as I said, people may well have thought this was from Black Mirror or also magic.
Um,
But of course, what we're looking to at Healthiplate and what other apps in the market are starting to do as well, it is being made possible by, as I said, the buzzword, which is AI. So over the last few years, of course, there have been huge changes in technology, and with that, image recognition and the ability to recognize food.
mhm.
Although I don't think it's the best idea to just rely on AI, which is why we've also worked with a certified nutritionist as well throughout the process. So that's involved creating a profiling guide which tells the app how to score foods, what to look out for, and everything else that goes into the fundamentals of the app as well. And of course, it's helping us with the quality assurance of the app to just make
Mm.
sure that we're not just relying on AI like other apps may well be doing.
Mm. So I have a more like detailed question for this. If I take the picture for this meal,
Yes.
can the app, by using the technology to calculate like the amount of different categories of the food?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, apps and AI, they are capable of recognizing quantities of foods as well, whether that's liquid volume
Mm.
or with foods, the length and width of that food as well, such as, let's say, a chicken fillet or a salmon fillet.
And you mentioned ADHD and
Yes,
PCOS a lot. So firstly, can I ask, like, definitely you don't have PCOS, right?
I absolutely don't.
But do you have ADHD?
Yes.
Oh, so that's one of the cause to
Yes.
focus on this. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so when I first had the idea, I was watching a episode of Driver CEO where Stephen Bartlett interviews an ADHD doctor and he was talking about diet and how that can interact with the condition.
Mm-hmm.
And the day before that, I came across an app that allows you to take photos of food, which is the first I'd heard of it. So I then thought, is there an app that allows you to
Mm.
take a photo of food and let you know whether it's good for ADHD? And there weren't, so that's where the idea first came. And when that was first being developed, or for the first few days rather, the only goal was meant to be ADHD, so it was meant to be an ADHD centric app.
Mm.
Although, of course, I know people with PCOS, I know people with diabetes, and I know people with poor gut health as well,
Mm.
which is why we now have a huge list of goals that the app does address, and that's what led to Healthiplate being what it is today.
Recently, especially in TikTok and Instagram, a lot of people start, especially young people, start to talking about, how they got bothered by ADHD. But at the same time, some people still have the myth on ADHD,
Yes.
right? Have some misunderstanding. So for you, can you be more specific about what's the common like pain point of ADHD people, and what the diet can especially help them? Because I'm not sure. It's like focus on something, or If I too focus, will it influence my creative thinking? I know this part.
Yeah, so ADHD is typically how the brain interacts with dopamine. So as you said, it it can go both ways. So for example, with some tasks, people may have difficulty focusing, be quite irritable,
Yeah.
be a bit hyperactive, whether that's fidgeting or anything else. But on the other hand, and this is why so many entrepreneurs I've seen, whether it's Richard Branson, even Timon Bartlett,
Yeah.
that have ADHD, they find that if there's something they enjoy, they have an ability to hyperfocus on it, which actually can be used as a secret weapon as well, which might explain why so many entrepreneurs
Definitely.
are actually diagnosed with ADHD as well.
Mm. So for the diet, for the food, like what's the goal of the ADHD? Or I can more specifically personalize it. If I have ADHD, what's my goal? I can be more focused on something, or I still feel a little bit confused for this.
Yeah, so with the ADHD goal, the core of the app is to essentially tell you what to eat or what to include or take out of your diet to help you best optimize your brain health. So
Brain
ADHD,
health.
absolutely. So it's typically things like avoiding sugar, refined carbohydrates, excessive caffeine, which some people do use to medicate for ADHD instead of actual medication. Um, Dairy, casein protein as well, and instead it asks you to focus more on uh, unprocessed food and avoiding refined foods as well, as in to things like whole grain or things that are known to improve your brain health as well.
So we can move on for the PCOS. Can you share more like stories related to this? We're eager for that.
Yeah, of course. So actually, towards the end of June, I was actually in London, Muslim Tech Fest, which was a one-day event, 1,500 attendees, and it was the first event I went to representing Healthiplate because it was the first event I went to where the beta version of the app was sufficiently developed enough for me to actually show people the app.
Yeah.
And during the after party, I was sat on a table entirely new faces. And as it happened, two of the women on that table had PCOS. So there were, which not only was a coincidence, but it also noticed to me sort of how prevalent this condition is, which also tied into posting on social media
Yeah.
or conversations you have with, especially friends and to some extent family as well. And of course, they were quite pleased that the condition was represented, and by extension, that they were represented within Healthiplate as well. And that also led to quite a lot of excitement for the app as well, just because they were also looking for ways to track whether or not they were eating was good to manage their PCOS condition,
Yeah.
and also knowing in what they should and shouldn't avoid. And of course, the ability to track your habits, build those habits, and see how you're doing from one week to the next, and essentially trying to make sure that you have that constant improvement in what you are eating and also what you are avoiding.
Because I feel in the traditional apps, even for these nutrition apps, those people are more like invisible, right? But you, yes, taking care of this part. So, what kind of change do you want Healthy Plate to bring for them for the future? To how you develop it?
Yeah, so the change I want is to reduce a lot of the misinformation in the health industry. People that may typically be forgotten by the industry to be represented. And I think that has been quite a key issue so far. But ultimately, it's for people to have the awareness of how to manage their condition, what foods to have, what foods to avoid, but also having the education in regards to whether it's not just a case of avoiding that food, but also why they should avoid it, and if a food is good for them, then why is it good for them, just to build up that knowledge base.
Mm. So, how do the nutritions fit on this picture? Or let's say this app is replacing them or just compensating each other?
I believe to an extent it's both. So the app does give insights in a way that a nutritionist does, but of course, the way the app works is that it's meant to be a guide. So there may just be three pros and three cons, for example, with every food.
Oh.
But of course, with the way that science evolves, the app will have to evolve with it. But I do think it would be difficult to fully replace depth and the awareness that a nutritionist can bring. So I do see this largely as a tool to complement them rather than to substitute them.
Oh, I want to dig this deeper. You mentioned like every time when I have the photo,
Yes.
it can help me to understand the pros and cons.
Yes.
Have you done any research about your target audience? Will they click the pros firstly or the cons firstly?
So actually, that's been something that we've been considering in the design of the episode. Actually, my CMO did point out
Yeah.
that, for example, if someone has a doner kebab, they know that it's bad for them, but they
But
don't.
it's delicious.
But it is delicious, but it's still sadly bad for them, as
Yeah.
a lot of delicious foods tend to
Yeah.
be. So what we don't want is for the app to lecture people and to tell them something they already know, like doner kebab is bad for you. So the way we've designed the app is that when I take a photo of the food, the pros are automatically there. But for the cons, the user has to actually press the cons to get that list. So therefore, the cons are only visible if the reader wants to know why it's bad for them.
It's a clever move. It's a
Yes.
clever move. And people don't want to be educated every day.
Absolutely, or definitely not lecture on a Friday night when they don't a kebab.
Mm. And how's about, the analyze of the, let's say, per week, per month, everything?
So with that, we have an ability where users can monitor their macros on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis. So that's also with macro tracking. Then with the averages, we have a week by week breakdown. So for example, in week 2, so at the end of the week, the app gives their average score. Then in week 2, they can essentially compete against themselves to see whether or not their average weekly score is higher or lower than it was in the prior week. And with that, the aim is for users to compete against themselves and make sure that they are making that upward progress week by week by week.
For this part, like let's say as an entrepreneur,
Yes.
what's your process? What's your journey? Because you don't have like the business background,
No.
right? How do you navigate all of those? How do you decide, okay, I think this is right. This is a decision I really want to make to add in this app. Are you feeling scared at that stage? And how did you do that?
Not necessarily. I think with entrepreneurship, as it is with a lot of areas in life, I do believe in learning by doing. So typically, it's been implementing a feature, putting it out to people, getting people's advice on it, whether that's members of the public, people that go to events, as I mentioned, such as Muslim Tech Fest, or even interns within the team as well. Just get their perspectives, doing our own research, seeing what it is that people want, such as personalization, and then making sure that any feature within that that's finalized is in line with what people would want and what research suggests.
Mm, what's the biggest challenge in the whole journey?
The biggest challenge has been during development, which was making sure that the app is accurate when it comes to scoring. Typically, in the startup mantra is across there as saying that if the first version of the app you published is not embarrassing, then you launch too late. So a lot of people say, first of all, you should make something exist and then make it good. Whereas, of course, with a health app, it's different because we have a responsibility to people that use the app for it to be accurate. So, for example, in one instance, it's things like adaptogens and lines made. So we recognize that the app wasn't taking those into account. So it was because it's back to the drawing board, back to the nutritionist who's at this point is number one on my speed dial, making sure that the logic was updated, the profiling guide was updated, and ensuring that the app before launch has the ability to take into account everything that a user might expect it to take into account. So with that, we went through the code, we went back through the nutrient profiling guide. We then had a look, is anything missing? So, for example, um, for example, with ginger shots, you have a lot of ingredients that may not be in a meal or a snack. So then the question is, can the app identify those ingredients and essentially score them? If not, we would then go back to our nutritionist and ask them to expand the profiling guide to make sure that is included. Same with adaptogens such as lion's mane, which is known for cognitive benefits, and then having to update the app to make sure that the app does have the ability to recognize all of those foods and ingredients and nutrients.
Mm. And it sounds like you have cost a lot of budget onto in there. So do you have any
Yes.
investors
Um,
current
as
right
of
now?
as of yet, no, and this is something that has been on my mind quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I do believe, from my experience and from talking to friends and through, of course, LinkedIn feeds,
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of investors they do want to see traction before they invest. And of course, now with AI and the ability to make an MVP, I do believe that the threshold for which investors do invest is higher.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not just be having an app or an idea, but it's likely to have users and traction. And of course, with the various demands on entrepreneur faces, it's better being bootstrapped. There's always the opportunity cost where 1 hour spent looking for investors is 1 hour spent less on development,
Yeah.
on speaking to users, on making sure that the features are correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the decision to essentially build our app first, build Healthiplate first, build the traction and get the consumer base before we considered going to any investors.
Mm. So you basically everything is your own invest.
Yes, so today everything has been bootstrapped, which
Oh.
has led to a few interesting sleepless nights.
Mm-hmm. When you're speaking of the next, what's your goal in 3 years, 5 years? This kind of really goals.
World domination. Maybe not really that far, but I would like to think that Healthiplate it's a fledgling successful company,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately it's helped even one person make a positive change in their life and improve their quality of life and their life outcomes. Whether that's reversing pre-diabetes, improving their gut health, being able to manage their PCOS, or even improving their hormonal health.
Mm. But I think a lot of health apps struggle with the retention. It's like people gonna try download them when sometimes people think, okay, from tomorrow I'm gonna living a healthy life, and they download it. After 1 week, they stop to use it. After 1 month, they delete it. It's pretty common in health
Yes.
app. So how are you make sure Healthy Plate doesn't just become, this kind of New Year resolution download.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think this is something that has been on our mind because we know from our own research that retention can be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I believe fundamentally, if you build a quality product, people will be drawn to it and they would want to use it. And of course, this has been a valuable lesson in behavioral economics and psychology as well.
Yeah.
So currently, there's two key steps we've taken. So first of all, which is a streak measure within the app to essentially allow people to build that momentum, including positive reinforcement from the app. And the last thing we've done is have a feature in the app where people can see their weekly average,
Yeah.
so they can see how well they're doing from 1 week to the other. And ideally, people's scores are improving as they're knowing what to be and what to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
So hoping that leads to the positive reinforcement and the belief that actually this app is helping me achieve my goals. And we're hoping that then builds the habit where people keep on using the app and helps us to overcome the industry issue of user retention.
Do you want to add some function related to like social people's attention?
Absolutely. So in version 2 or maybe even beyond or sooner, who knows? We do want to have a chatbot similar to say Reddit or Quora, where people can use it to forge a community, whether it's showing their wins, any questions they have, any challenges, and really just to build that user base as well, which again we hope would lead to users using the app on a consistent basis rather than, as you said, maybe deleting it
Mm-hmm.
after a week or two.
Mm. And speaking of the market,
Yes.
what's your initial targeted users? And for this stage, what's your like a bigger dream to exploring a bigger market?
Absolutely. So I think to begin with, and again from our research, it's Gen Z who typically have a greater awareness of conditions like ADHD, a desire to maximize their brain health, especially students as well, who of course rely on that cognitive
Mm.
functioning. And then beyond that, our secondary market is people with ADHD, PCOS. Those who might be pre-diabetic
Yeah.
or have diabetes or have an under or overactive thyroid or may want to um, increase their hormonal conditions or optimize their hormones, rather, I should
Yeah.
say. And then finally, it's general users interested in health and fitness who want to know more about their diet and where they're going well and where they may not be going so well.
Because I can imagine, for the elderly people,
Yes,
that it can also be very useful for them because they not cannot, I mean, it's hardly for them to remember every food clearly
absolutely.
and collect the data to the doctor or the family members, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, within the app, we had this put in quite recently, but now users can actually export what they've eaten as a CSV or as a PDF, with the ability to then be able to show it to a nutritionist, a family member, or even a doctor.
Yeah. So let's go back to the bigger markets. Maybe besides UK,
Yeah.
do you have like more ambitious to go further?
Of course, so again, as you mentioned, the UK, but also the US. I know from speaking to nutritionists there that we worked with, they've said that gut health is a key problem in the US, which of course that's been one of our goals. So hopefully there's that alignment there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but of course, even ADHD, there's a huge proportion of the population that is affected by ADHD or may want to improve their cognitive well-being as well. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, with the fact that it's quite that it is an advanced country, a lot of people into health and fitness as well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now with the traction of devices like the Apple Watch or Whoop. I do believe that's a key target market for us, and then it would be Europe, and then moving on to other target markets that are maybe within the developing world instead.
Mm. So now I see in your website there is like a we can add into the waiting
Yes,
list,
indeed you
right?
can. You can.
What's the meaning of that, and what's your goal personally as what do you want to test at
Um,
the first stage?
yeah, of course. So the purpose of the waitlist is first of all we wanted to see even before launch. Is this an idea that I've romanticized in my head and made it into something that will be huge and change the world? Or is it something that people would actually want to use? And the numbers we've had so far, which is at this point a few dozen waitlist members that have all been achieved organically, we've been able to confirm that there is actually a real world demand for this as well, which has mainly allowed us to first of all capture users that we can target who we know would be ideal for the app in terms of the target market.
Mm.
But also, if you do decide to apply for grants or apply for investment, we can show that there is actually a real world traction for this.
Do you think some people gonna concern about the privacy, the ethical thing because it's related to photos, yeah, uploading everything?
I don't believe so. So we don't capture what people are eating. That's between these are themselves. Then of course because we are working with Apple and Google to distribute the app. For the main part, the user information would actually be stored by Apple and Google and not with us. Although we have taken steps ourselves, such as registering with the ICO,
Mm.
the Information Commission's office as well, just to help mitigate any risks that users might face.
Mm. Was there a piece of user feedback that really moved you because you start, already tested
Yes.
among the people? So, is there any moments make you feel it is not an app? It just align with your dream to change the world and to really impact people's life.
Of course, so the beta version, we have, as you mentioned, distributed it to a select people, and now that's been expanded.
Mhm.
The feedback I've had so far has been really quite wonderful. Even though it's far from the final version, although we are getting to that
Yeah.
point quite quickly. Typically, the feedback has been that people are now being able to understand what they're eating a lot more. Then we're able to decode their diet, and essentially, it's meant that we're essentially being allowed to democratize
Mhm.
nutrition as well. And I've had feedback saying that it's helped people achieve their health goals, that they now feel better in themselves.
Mm.
They've lost weight, they've put on muscle, or they managed to even reverse symptoms of pre-diabetes as well. So that's been wonderful to hear.
Mm. Have you heard any feedback about maybe about my goal currently is not on the app of your list? For example, my goal is about my skin. I want
Yeah.
my skin more, glamorous and brighter, everything. But definitely, it's not on your app now. So I want to personalize this kind of goal. Have you heard of this kind of feedback?
As of yet, we haven't, although I do expect that to happen more and more once we expand our beta users and, of course, with the public launch.
Yeah,
Although my response could be that could your skin health be related to your gut health, which of course
maybe.
is covered in the app.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of features that people want, again going back to this what we had at Muslim Tech Fest,
Mm-hmm.
the number one request is the ability to track multiple health goals, which although the app doesn't currently do, we are working towards that for version 2 and we are already making strides towards that happening.
Mm. And can I understand for the business aspect, can I understand it? The goal is more like people say SKU,
Yeah.
right? Because you need to have the database and the AI, the nutritions. So can I say we add one more goal and
Yeah.
you gonna spend more budget? So can you calculate it a little bit for us? For example, if you add one goal in the app, how much money you gonna spend?
So that's not hypothetical because I have done that quite a few times already, which has led to the bank not being overly happy with me. Although it does have to be done. So typically, if someone asks for a new goal, the first step would be to ask the nutritionist to add that goal to the profiling guide, which does take a few days, which incurs costs.
Yeah, yeah,
And then with the developer, it has to be implemented, which takes 2 or 3 days. Again, adding to costs or maybe adding to a new milestone being created, which I'm currently going through. And then of course the time it takes to test that feature and make sure that the scoring is accurate as well. And making sure that first of all, that the AI engine we use can detect those nutrients. Secondly, that the nutrients are being passed onto the app. And thirdly, that the weighting of those nutrients is correct. For example, with some goals, some nutrients are more important than others, so they have to be weighted. And so that's the entire process that we would go through.
So we often talk about how AI will transform our jobs, but food is personal, it's emotional. And how do you think AI will transform the way we eat and the way we feel about food in the, let's say, next 5 years? Maybe it's too long because rapid changing for AI. Maybe next 2 years.
I think AI with anything, it can be used as a force for good or a force for bad. I believe with food, it primarily will be a tool for good. Firstly, for example, speaking from experience, I can't speak. Speaking from experience, when I've been laser focused on my diet, I've often had to neglect home cooked foods in order for meal prep, just so I can see how many calories, how much fat, how much protein, how many carbs the food might have. Whereas now the ability to take a photo means that I can still have home cooked food and still optimize and track what I eat. I think likewise for restaurants, people may be deterred because they don't know if they go out how many calories are on their plate. Again, the ability to take a photo and get that information, it does mean that that barrier is being eradicated. And again, that information is being democratized as well because we're now not just relying on foods from meal prep or from supermarkets. And again, as a photo, people can tell straight away whether or not what they're eating is good or bad for them as well. And that's why even within the app, the app gives options for depending on what your goal is, what foods to have, and what foods to avoid. So it doesn't mean that you have to take a photo of your food before you have that information.
Let's fast move into 5 years later.
Yes.
If Healthiplate being very successful, just as our expectation, what does your everyday life look like? Your everyday life.
I think I definitely need some psychic powers to answer that question.
Mm,
I think if it does go well, I believe I would have learned an awful lot, especially on
yeah.
entrepreneurship. I'd have the freedom to do a lot more things, but I would anticipate, I certainly hope as well, that my future would then also go more into philanthropy, more charity work, and hopefully using the resources that I have to carry on making a difference in the world.
Mm. And at that time, what kind of, you know, what kind of feedback you want to hear? Or can you imagine at that time how the breakfast, grocery shopping, or eating out feel like for the people, for your users?
Yeah, so I think it would be hopefully a bit more involving customers already knowing what they should and
Mm,
shouldn't have rather than having to experiment as well.
yeah,
It could well be that people go around the supermarkets taking photos of food, getting a score before putting it
yeah.
into their basket. But of course, if that again helps users make better decisions, then it's not necessarily, of course, a bad thing.
Mm. Okay, one last question. Besides healthy plate,
Yeah.
if someday you have a new chance to also start a business from scratch, what that would be?
So another business. Again, I think there's still a lot of work to do with health and fitness. So again, I believe that any business I do have would either be driven by maybe past experience,
Mm-hmm.
a pain point, or a also or something that's a passion of mine, which again will be health and fitness. So
Mm,
again, it could be something maybe not in the line of food, but maybe um again targeted towards gym goals, but maybe showing them how to maximize the time in the gym, whether that's sort of evaluating their form in the gym or something
mm.
along those lines.
Okay, I think somebody gonna steal these ideas
Yeah,
from our
yeah,
podcast.
that's why I was being very careful about the words.
Okay, thank you
Unless
so.
everyone who watches it signs an NDA beforehand.
Oh, yeah.